Right, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. Now in this video, dude, I want to go over my top 10 sorest or saltiest losers throughout UFC history. Okay, now I have compiled a list of 10 fighters that span across a wide time span, and I've tried to keep the names relatively notable. But if you think I've missed somebody, or you think my order's off, or you think somebody doesn't deserve to be on this list, please let me know down in the comments below. I would greatly appreciate it. With that being said, let us get started right away with number 10 on my list, and that is Rampage Jackson. I will be completely and totally honest. The only reason Rampage Jackson made this list is because I had 9 fighters. I couldn't think of another one, and I do know that Rampage Jackson still to this day calls Jon Jones a dirty fighter when talking about his fight with him. Okay, now I agree with Rampage Jackson that Jon Jones, for the most part, is a dirty fighter. There are a number of reasons you could make that claim. One of them that I completely and totally disagree with, which is one that Rampage Jackson likes to push a lot, is the knee stomps or the side kicks to the knee that Jon Jones throws to his opponents. Okay, I cannot for the life of me understand that. You guys are in a fight, you're trying to essentially kill each other, but just have the referee stop you before you get to that point. You are perfectly fine with somebody getting your opponent, or getting whoever in a heel hook, tearing every ligament in their knee, not a problem. But if you kick my knee, that's a problem. It's weird to me. Okay, you're trying to kick each other in the head, the liver. Like, there are so many things that you could do to one another that could potentially cause long-term injuries, right? Long-term ailments. Not just that one. I found it crazy when Wonderboy Thompson called out Darren Till for it. I found it crazy when Darren Till called out Robert Whittaker for it, even though Darren Till was more or less kidding. I liked Robert Whittaker's approach to it. When he took it from Yoel after getting his knee blown out, he just goes and does it right back to Yoel. That's the kind of stuff that I like. Rampage Jackson still to this day, and we are very far away removed from that fight, will call Jon Jones a dirty fighter, specifically for the knee stomps, and I find that to be a little salty. Okay, he beat you. He probably would have beat you anyways. It is what it is. Move on. Number 9, okay? Dominick Cruz. Now, some fighters on this list are on here because of a pattern of behavior. Ones that have just a moment are more or less near the top of this list, and that's why Dominick Cruz is here. Okay, so Dominick Cruz is on this list for one moment in particular, and that is his loss to Henry Cejudo, okay, which he believes, and to be fair, dude, there's quite a few people that think this as well, that it was an early stoppage. Now, he took a ton of unanswered shots, okay, he was getting beat, all right, and he was moving, but he wasn't necessarily intelligently defending himself, which is a criteria for a technical knockout. So I didn't have a massive problem with the stoppage. I could see the argument for the fact that he was getting back to his feet and things like that, but he wasn't actually defending himself at the time. Lots of guys have been the victims of early stoppages, okay? Dominick Cruz will not give up on this shit, even to this day. When he is commentating a fight, keep in mind this fight was 4 years ago, okay? He will take subliminal shots at Keith Peterson. If he watches a referee allow a fighter to go completely and totally unconscious, Dominick Cruz will say something like, wow, good job on the referee for not doing that early and giving him a chance to fight back, as the guy's like seizuring on the mat. Do you know what I mean? Like, Dominick Cruz, and I don't necessarily disagree, wants to see guys go all the way out. Obviously, there's a point in which a fight should be stopped, even if the guy's not all the way out, but still, he will always take little digs at that almost every single time. He couldn't stand when John Anik would refer to Keith Peterson as no-nonsense Keith Peterson. Also, you could tell it was eating away at him, okay? Also, I feel like a lot of people forget this. Almost immediately following that, Dominick Cruz, I don't know what other consequence he could have thought would happen as a result of this, was like trying to get Keith Peterson fired from his job. Okay, he was essentially saying that Keith Peterson was drunk on the job and smoking cigarettes. He said he smelled like alcohol and cigarettes. Okay, this is a meme at this point. But one thing I'll point out, Keith Peterson can have a cigarette if he wants to on his break, okay? Not a big deal. Number 2, this was, if I'm not mistaken, the first event back during the sickness that came in 2020, okay? Keith Peterson probably smelled like hand sanitizer, and that's probably it. Dominick Cruz insinuated that he was drunk on the job and was smoking cigarettes. I don't know if he meant inside or what, but it was really odd coming from Dominick Cruz, and he will still to this day talk about that stoppage, complains about it, takes subliminal shots at Keith Peterson 4 years later, okay? It's wild. Moving on. Number 8 on my list. Aljamain Sterling and the Sean O'Malley loss. I know some people will probably disagree with this one, but dude, and honestly, he probably could have been higher up on this list. The fact that Rampage has been talking about his fight with Jon Jones for so much longer, but Aljamain Sterling's clearly very salty about that loss to Sean O'Malley. He talks about it almost every chance he gets. He pretends like he hates talking about it, even though, aside from that documentary that recently came out, he was the only one that would consistently bring it up. Now, the reason he is high up on this list is because he at the very least acknowledges that he lost legitimately on the night, but says that he was injured and wishes he didn't get rushed on 15 weeks and stuff like that. So it is what it is, lingering injuries and all that stuff. He does kind of also diminish Sean O'Malley's win by saying things like, I don't know what kind of man would be satisfied with that performance. You know that you didn't fight the best me and all that shit. Like, he's salty, bro. You've moved up a weight class. You've gotten a win since. You're in the top 10 of that new weight class. You could potentially be fighting for like a title within a couple of years or even a year if you get the right matchups. But he's still focused on that loss, okay? Even though it's long in the rear view, almost been a year since then, and you can just tell, dude, it eats at him. And I'm not even trying to be shitty about it. But either way, dude, moving up the list to number 7. I have a feeling there's going to be a bunch of people that disagree with this one. Kind of depends who you're a fan of, but Tim Kennedy, okay? Many of you will probably already know the incident I'm about to be speaking about, and that is Stoolgate, right? Now, I'll explain it briefly. Tim Kennedy was fighting Yoel Romero, okay? Tim Kennedy had almost finished Yoel Romero. He was beating the shit out of Yoel Romero when the bell rang. Yoel Romero was on skates. Tim was absolutely doing him in, okay? John McCarthy stops the fight for the end of the round. They go to their separate corners. Yoel Romero's corner, okay, did some iffy things. Now, I want to point out that some of the stuff that was done to buy some time, or at the very least that's what it seems like, was done by the cut man. And maybe not at this time, I would have to go back and check, but the vast majority, the cut man is a state employee, right? Like, they work for the commission. It's not like Yoel Romero has one of his cornermen being his cut man. So I don't know that, it was a weird situation, okay? Now, Yoel Romero ended up staying on the stool for longer than he was supposed to. John McCarthy didn't disqualify him. Then when John McCarthy made him get off the stool, he realized that he had way too much Vaseline on his face, made the cut man come back and wipe it off because he didn't want to be tampering with that kind of shit and then, causing other controversies to happen. John McCarthy explains it as like he didn't want to DQ Yoel Romero for a corner screw up, right? Because the corner was the one, or the cut man was the one that put way too much Vaseline on his face, right? Tim doesn't think so, okay? Tim hates this shit. He will still talk about it to this day. This fight was a decade ago, literally 10 years ago. Tim will post anniversary posts about this fight, okay? Calling out Big John McCarthy, talking about how he screwed up and all the rest of it. And it's wild to me because there's one detail that Tim leaves out that makes me believe he is a salty, unbelievably sore loser, and that is that he was cheating, okay? He was grabbing a hold of Yoel's gloves when he had him in that sequence where he was really badly hurt, keeping Yoel Romero from actually defending himself while he was getting punched in the face up against the cage, okay? So Tim Kennedy will go on and on and on about this horrible deed that was done by Big John McCarthy. The fact that Yoel Romero's a dirty cheat. He bought extra time on the stool. His corner helped him buy extra time on the stool. And all of this shit. And Tim believes that had Yoel Romero been forced to get off the stool when he was supposed to, forced to begin to fight when they were supposed to, Tim would have been able to go out there and finish him. Tim kind of gassed, okay? And then ended up getting finished himself in the next round. Now, maybe that would have happened, okay? Who knows? But that's not how it played out. And I kind of understand John McCarthy's reasoning of like, I'm not going to punish Yoel because his corner fucked up. I understand that that might be what's written, but there's nuance to this shit and whatever. Listen, dude, there were mistakes literally made on every fucking side of that. Tim Kennedy cheated, hurting Yoel, and used cheating to get him to the point where he had almost finished him. Big John McCarthy was maybe a little too passive in trying to get Yoel off the stool, trying to get him back into the fight, and Yoel's corner and Cutman doing the Vaseline and all that stuff. Every single person made mistakes. It was a weird one. But Tim Kennedy still posting anniversary posts on it is absolutely wild. He has not gotten over it, as I said, a decade later. Okay? Absolutely insane. Moving up, dude, number 6. I'm imagining many of you were waiting to see when he would get brought up, and that is Jamahal Hill. Okay, now, a lot of you probably think he should be higher up. I have a feeling that is recency bias, or at the very least, in my opinion, okay? I've got a bit of a higher standard for the guys in the top 5, guys and a girl in the top 5, okay? Also, I want people to keep this in mind, right? Jamahal Hill, prior to this, was undefeated. This was his first ever loss, right? He got completely schooled within a round, and it's only been a few months. So maybe, we just, maybe we give him a little bit of time. Hopefully, I'm preemptively hoping that he will realize the error in his ways. I don't necessarily think he will, but that being said, it is kind of new. Just happened relatively recently, okay, and it is what it is. But we all know the excuses that he's made. Absolute cope, complete and total BS, just making stuff up at this point, kicking him in the hip, and it wasn't the cup. It was Herb Dean's fault for not giving me an advantage and separating me from my opponent who had closed the distance on me when I'm the one that made the foul. Still talking about it today, posting about it on Instagram, bragging about another man's knockout victory over Alex Pereira. It's very strange behavior, very salty, very sore loserish, okay? It is what it is. I would imagine many of you would put Jamahal Hill much higher up on this list, but either way, dude, we're moving on to number 5, and that is TJ Dillashaw, okay? TJ Dillashaw is like literally known for being a sore loser. It's essentially a meme at this point in the MMA community. Luckily for him, it doesn't happen all that often, but every single loss of his, except maybe the John Dodson one because that was a TKO, I wouldn't be surprised if he had a problem with that either. But that being said, okay? His split decision loss to Rafael Sunsao and his split decision loss to Dominick Cruz, obviously salty about, thinks he won, which, you know what, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. They were very close fights. If he thinks that he should have gotten the nod, so be it. We see that all the time. I'm thinking of the Henry Cejudo loss in particular, okay? This one is wild to me, especially with context that we didn't have at the time, but a few days later we got, okay? Now, he believes that fight was stopped early. It was mini Mark Goddard. Kevin McDonald was referee, if I'm not mistaken. Henry Cejudo had knocked down Dillashaw twice, okay? One of them seemingly by the wind of his foot. Do you know what I mean? Like, TJ Dillashaw was getting absolutely manhandled, thrown around like he was nothing, okay? Like a rag doll. He literally looked like Raggedy Andy, just flopping all over the cage. Looked like he had an eating disorder, which, because he probably did, okay? He was hurt, clearly, pretty badly, early on, was getting tossed around, was getting beat up. The stoppage was maybe a little bit early, but, again, much like the Dominick Cruz Henry Cejudo one, not one I had a serious problem with, okay? Because I think it was, I hate when people use this argument, but it was clearly trending in a certain direction. I don't think TJ Dillashaw's body was able to hold up, cutting down to 125. Now, the part that makes it unbelievable, okay, because TJ Dillashaw was crying about this, raging. He was getting mad at Kevin McDonald in the cage. He was raging about it after the fact while crying, like literally crying, okay? What makes it even crazier is that he acted like that all the while knowing that he was juicing, okay, that he was on EPO. And perhaps that played into his reaction because you know damn well in your mind, like, I'm probably screwed, okay? I know that I've been juicing. I know that I've had to take drug tests. I'm probably going to get suspended, and I've got nothing to show for it. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like that was part of what TJ was going through that night, okay? And it just came off as being an unbelievably salty loser because he couldn't just come out and say, I took EPO. I'm going to get suspended, and I didn't even fucking win. Do you know what I mean? So that's why TJ Dillashaw's up here. Now we move on to number 4, okay? Nick Diaz. Bro, Nick Diaz comes up with the craziest shit for his losses. Now, if you ask Nick Diaz, if you ask Nate or Nick, they've won every fight that they've lost, pretty much, okay? But if you ask Nick Diaz, he beat both Anderson Silva, he beat Carlos Condit. They were close fights, but listen, dude, there's better arguments for the Condit fight, but either way. The main one I'm thinking of, okay, is his loss to George St. Pierre. Nick Diaz claims George St. Pierre was juicing, okay, that he didn't make weight and that he did a fake weigh-in in order to have it said that he made weight. And also that he poisoned him, dude. Nick Diaz on his straight-up Deontay Wilder type shit, okay? Deontay Wilder type shit before Deontay Wilder was even known, okay? I'm surprised Nick Diaz didn't try to say that George St. Pierre had egg weights in his gloves and that's why his head swelled up in the shape of an egg weight form.
I highly believe you put something hard in your glove. Something the size and the shape of an egg weight. Here's the reason why the side of my face swelled up in an egg weight form.
Okay? Either way. The poisoning thing is fucking crazy to me, dude. Because Montreal is so known for that, eh? As if Canada, as if Montreal, okay, is like some Japanese Yakuza type shit during Pride, and we're poisoning fighters or fit to fix fights. Unbelievable to me, okay? Listen, dude, I don't necessarily like French Canadians all that much, but I sure as shit don't think they poison Nick Diaz, okay? I just don't. And I would imagine George St. Pierre probably did make weight, as he did throughout the rest of his career. And, maybe he was juicing, but he never tested positive. So we will never know for sure. And I don't like to make strong claims when there's not a whole lot of evidence behind it. I know there's a lot of people that think whatever. Bunch of shit. But Nick Diaz in this situation, unhinged. And he will still, to this day, hold firm on this. He believes this wholeheartedly. Nate Diaz believes this, okay? George St. Pierre poisoned them, faked the way in because he didn't actually make weight. And also, I believe they talk about him getting an IV and was on steroids, okay? But that was at a time when you were allowed IVs. Keep that in mind, okay? Crazy shit from Nick Diaz. Moving up to number 3, Ronda Rousey. Okay, now this chick has literally, this chick has never once given an opponent credit. Now, she's only ever lost 2 times, if I'm not mistaken, right? Holly Holm, Amanda Nunes. Obviously, she had losses in judo, but she blames everybody but herself for her losses, okay? And still today will make excuses for them. Very long these fights are long in the past, my guy. Long in the past, and she will still make excuses for them. It's ridiculous, okay? She's rude as fuck to everybody, allegedly, all right? And wonders why people don't speak about her with the utmost kindness, okay? And I will direct you guys to a video. I think it was a couple videos I watched, done by Jimmy Smith, in where he kind of breaks down the way Ronda Rousey treated people who you didn't necessarily need to treat well, but you only would if you were a kind, respectful person, and she failed all of those tests. You know what I mean? So, go check that out if you're interested. But also, though, right? She claims the Holly Holm loss, I fell down the stairs, I was concussed. She claims that the mouth guard was causing her problems. I mean, she claims the Amanda Nunes shit, the UFC, people were pushing her and nobody cared about. All this weird shit. Not once could she just be like, you know what? Congratulations to Holly Holm. Maybe I shouldn't have tried to strike with her so much. Maybe I shouldn't have listened to my retard fucking coach who told me I was like a world-class striker when I was absolutely god-awful. Do you know what I mean? Simple as, okay? Super sore loser, still makes excuses to this day, will never take responsibility for her actions, is rude to almost everybody around her that she doesn't need to be nice to, and just seems like overall kind of a shitty person, if we're being fucking honest, okay? Pioneer of women's MMA, fair enough. Dickhead, more than likely. Moving up to number 2, okay? You guys are probably thinking, who the fuck could he have waiting for us at number 2 and number 1? When we've already gone, the people that I've thought of are already on this list, okay? Paul fucking Daley, okay? Paul Daley. If you're a newer fan, you're not going to know who he is. That's fine, go back and watch, unless you watch some Bellator or some shit, who knows. Now, the reason he's here at the bottom is because the standard that I set for my final 2 picks were that they had to go above and beyond complaining, excuses, and things like this, okay? Now, Paul Daley in a fight with Josh Koscheck, who basically just kind of wrestled him the entire fight. Josh Koscheck, that is, who was a wrestler, right? Basically wrestled Paul Daley the entire fight, completely and totally nullifying Paul Daley's offense. And Paul Daley, if I'm not mistaken, lost all 3 rounds. Unanimous decision, okay? He was so frustrated in this loss and that he couldn't really do anything to Josh Koscheck that after the bell rang in round 3, he actually threw shots intentionally, okay? This isn't like Jermaine Durandamy in Holly Holm's fight. This is like, I'm mad at you. You've turned your back. I'm going to try and hit you now. As plain as day. That was what it was. He threw punches and landed after the bell intentionally out of frustration because he lost. This, to me, is like the ultimate form of a sore or salty loser, okay? Because you're such a salty fuck. You can't even control yourself in the moment and just wait. Respect the rules, respect the bell, respect the referee, respect your opponent. Chill. You could go on in the post-fight press conference to talk about what a boring motherfucker Josh Koscheck is. You could go on to talk about how he didn't even want to fight you. He just wanted to lay on top of me. This and that. You could express all of that. Be salty in that way. You literally assault the guy because he beat you. Do you know what I mean? That is unhinged behavior to me. And he ended up losing unanimously. It is what it is. But That to me is the worst form of salty loser. You literally tried to attack a guy after you just had 15 minutes to try and do something. Okay, now this might be a hint at who is number one, which is Jorge Masvidal. Okay, and I think most of you will know what I'm referring to. I know some of you are going to disagree. I don't really care. Jorge Masvidal, when he lost to Colby Covington, okay, and the way he handled it, in my opinion, is some of the bitchest shit of all time. This guy had 25 minutes to do whatever he wanted to Colby Covington, okay? And he didn't. He couldn't. He barely did anything, okay? After the bell, he proceeds to try and go at him as if he didn't just get beaten for essentially 5 rounds. I know Jorge Masvidal had moments. I know there was a brief, flash knockdown of Colby Covington off of, I believe it was a left hook. He did not do much. Colby Covington basically beat him throughout the entirety of the fight. That is what it is, okay? For 25 minutes. And then you try and go at him after the fact when you're clearly very tired and you couldn't do anything to him, even in the time given to you, okay? So he tried to pull a Paul Daley, right? Jorge Masvidal, though, goes and takes it a step further. At the very least, with Paul Daley, heat of the moment, you were literally just fighting a second ago. Now you're not. You're still trying to. Do you know what I mean? I don't like it at all. I hate it. It's the worst form of sore loser to me. But this is almost worse. This is first degree murder versus manslaughter, okay? Paul Daley at the very least could make the argument, heat of the moment, it was a crime of passion. Jorge Masvidal plots, okay? Plans out an assault, and he goes and jumps Colby Covington. I don't care if you hate Colby Covington and you love Jorge Masvidal, or you just hate Colby Covington, period, or whatever, dude. This is objectively bullshit, okay? You plot out an attack, you go and you jump your opponent after the fact in public, at a steakhouse, at a restaurant when he's not expecting it, and you sucker punch him because you know why, dude? Because you knew that he'd beat the shit out of you. He'd probably take you down, dump you on your head in the fucking concrete because you couldn't do anything to him in the octagon when you were allowed to, legally, and get paid for it. Do you know what I mean? Insanely bitch to me. Also, I don't want to hear he talked about his kids excuse, okay? Because listen, dude, Colby Covington may have brought up the premise of Jorge Masvidal's children. He did not say your kid's a fucking piece of shit, your daughter's a whore, or anything like this. What he did is he went after Jorge Masvidal for his parenting skills, okay? And based on Jorge's reaction to said attacks, seems like there might have been some truth to it, because he turns around and he acts like a childish thug after he has 25 minutes to do whatever he wants to this man that allegedly offended him so deeply that he had to go and plot out an attack and jump him in public. Do you know what I mean? So, sorest loser, Jorge Masvidal, and that's that, dude. You're not going to tell me otherwise. But if you disagree, if you think that my placement's off in terms of order, if you think I've missed somebody, please let me know down in the comments below. I would greatly appreciate it. I will see you at the next video. Like and subscribe. See ya.